Welcome to the group chat with Tara Thomas and Amanda Goodman of Faith and Four-Letter Words.
We've made it to Wednesday,
Limping.
running on fumes. You've got
Yes.
soccer going on. I have 6 varsity baseball games this week, 3 completed in the last 2 days. And when you drive an hour and a half to get to your game plus 2 games, it was like a 10-hour ordeal, I think, on Monday night.
Post
So
or a
it's
work
just-
day.
Oh
Post
yeah,
a work day.
right,
It's not
right.
like, you
so
know,
it's
in the beginning of the
crazy,
day.
but
It's
this
silly.
is what we do when the kids are the center of our world, right? We do everything to wrap our lives around their schedules.
Well, this is, again, thank you so much for joining us. It is Wednesday, June 3rd. And I also wanted to say it's very interesting then when it's all over. It's funny. It's kind of like, what was it for? Right? Because I think for a long time, everyone's
sports
chasing
especially.
sport. That's what I mean. Like you're
Mhm.
chasing, so many parents get way into it. Our whole lives are consumed with it, myself included. And then when it's over, and then it's just over, and then everyone like moves on. It's like, okay, like what did we? I mean, what was it all for? What is it all for? You know,
Yeah,
we've
that's
seen
such a good
it
point.
really is, because people get really
Well, because
hype.
our parents, had they been told someday your children are going to spend thousands of dollars and commit multiple
parents would have thought it
weekends.
was silly.
Well, yes, because
Completely
that was
silly.
the way that we evolved in a not great way as we became more and more obsessed, when really we know there's a profit model
It's all a
around
business.
travel sports.
It is all a
Uh-huh.
business. It's all a business. And I think that you can see really early on if your kiddo has like an absolute gift that's going to take them, you know, somewhere. And I think the most important thing that a lot of parents forget to do is ask your child, what's your end goal? Are you still having fun? Not like, hey, do you want to play, you know,
Right.
go on. Are you still having fun? Is this something that you see yourself doing? And, you know, parents, I think we forget to ask our kids that, and then we miss it. We miss the opportunity.
Well, and sometimes
We
maybe
assume-
they feel maybe that's pleasing us, or that's how they get attention from us, especially if it's like a dad who played a sport. I think the kid then thinks like they have to play that sport because that's what dad will be proud of, or that's what dad
Sure,
cares about.
sure.
And so that's always tough too. And I think we've talked about this personally from what I've seen. If you get up to the high school level, and really even the like middle school level, if you're the parent who's coaching your child, just know that everyone's talking behind your back.
Everyone's talking about
saying that your kid is getting preferential treatment.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
or that your kid shouldn't be playing a certain position because you are sunblind, right? That's
Right.
what you see a lot. And I mean, we've been through this where, and it's sad, but I've seen teams where the dad got the kid playing time, and then the actual high school that the kid ended up playing for, they don't even play.
Right, because you can only control the puppet strings for so
So
long.
that's so crazy.
You can only do the puppet strings for so long. But I do have to share this, and I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to give anybody some attention.
Oh, gosh,
I
was
think
excited to hear this
think
story.
somebody was really excited to put Amanda Goodman in their place
Okay.
yesterday. So I sit in my vehicle for games because we back up
Home
to the
games,
field.
yeah.
Like, and I have the hatch up and I sit in the back. And there was you know, it was a great game, and there was a moment in the game where players were on top of one of our players, and I'm like, they're riding her like an effing backpack, right? And I said the whole word though, but I was in the back of my vehicle. I didn't shout it. I will never shout at another team's play ever. I will go, yo, like that. Like, but I will never, ever, because I'm aware that I'm always being watched and listened to. And last night proved it. So I just said it like a matter of factly in my vehicle. Right. And there were people from the other opposing team that were sitting next to us, which you don't do that. Like, it's like, you know where to sit when you're in like soccer, you sit across the street, across the field from your team. So this gentleman turned around and he told me to watch my mouth. And I said, I'm in my car. And he was like telling me that I'm in public. And I said, I'm in my car, go to your side. And then I just kept saying, sir, because I didn't know what to do. Like, I was like,
so he
then
there
said,
knowing he was
he then
in the
said-
vicinity of Amanda.
because then he said, what are you gonna go blog about me? And I'm like,
oh my god,
you're not that important. Like, I'm not gonna vlog about you. But I was like, there it is. And I'm like, you've been waiting for your moment. So I looked at my friend who was sitting with me in the car, and I started laughing. And she said, we should get t-shirts made. Like, I told off Amanda Goodman, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. But for me, I was angry about it. Like, should I said that? Like the F word? Okay, I understand if that offended him, but I was in my car. I didn't shout it. I was in my vehicle on my side. Okay. I wasn't shouting. And if I was shouting at a kid, absolutely put me in my place. But for me, I was like, there is a man talking to a woman. And so I just wanted to put that into the group chat this morning. What would you do if you were sitting there with your spouse, your brother, your dad, your like anybody in your family, like a man in your family? What would you do if a man?
well, where was Hector?
Well, I tell him not to. He was standing right there. He stepped up, and I was like this because I got it because I don't need to escalate.
Say.
When Hector and someone said like, "Did you say anything?" and Hector's like, "No, she can handle herself." And I thanked him later, and I said, "Thank you for that," because he knows like I will tap him in if necessary. But for me, I didn't need to get to that level because it was so silly. But for me, I'm like, had my husband spoke that way to a woman, I would have grabbed his hand and looked at him quietly and not embarrass him in front of people, but I would have been like, enough. Mm-hmm. I would never like that was the part.
I don't think the guy would have said it to another guy. I think he was happy to say it.
I think he was very, so then he was surrounded by women. And so it was that part was very disappointing. So, but anyway, he had his 2 seconds where he got to tell Amanda
I think the better
t-shirt
would be, no, I'm not going to blog about it.
No, I mean, like, that's the thing. And so I'm like, if you're waiting for me to like, but it was just, for me, I'm like, I can't even go watch a game in peace. And it's like someone's waiting. And then it was like and I shouldn't even be talking about it now, but I mean, I really shouldn't be, but it was just like,
watching.
If you were like, I am a reactor. Like you cannot like, and so when someone told me, when he turned around and was like, watch your mouth, I was immediately transported to being like told what to do. And I'm like, I can't.
It triggered you.
It will trigger like, and having like, I mean, watch your mouth. Like, who are you? Like, who are you to tell? Like, what? Like, no. I mean, and that's like my husband telling me, if my husband looked at me and was like, calm down now, or turn it down a notch, you're guaranteed I'm going up 17 notches if you tell me to turn it down a notch. So I just didn't know if any other women here, if you enter the group chat, what would you do if you were in a situation where you are in public and then you have a man start shouting at you? I mean, or, you know what I mean? Like, what would, I mean, I can't. I was just, yeah.
That was interesting. So Thursday, you guys play again. And then if you win Thursday, you go to state.
We go to state.
That's exciting.
It is exciting. And it's also stressful. And then it's also, I wonder, why do I get so stressed? It's over a high school game, right? It's kind of like, we joke around in the fall, and, I'm sure Dave feels the same way with his, Seahawks and stuff. Like and like in the fall, we let a group of strangers determine our mood. On Sundays, or Notre Dame football. Like I let a bunch of college kids just determine my mood on right.
That's
so now
true.
It's like, so I'm trying to be very, very cautious of my excitement for something. And I don't want so much pressure on my kiddo, because at the end of the day, it's just a game and it's just high school.
Paula said, if a man shouted at me, he would regret it in a second. I don't tolerate crap from anyone.
Yeah,
good for you.
And I'm very angry at myself, because my friend was like, you were so calm. She was like, I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
But then I woke up this morning and I was so angry that I was calm, because it was like, I felt like I allowed him to speak to me like that.
No, I think it was good, because that just showed that in that situation, he's the one who embarrassed himself, because by coming at you on your turf, so to speak, people around him probably were like, okay, that was
well, he wasn't, well, and he kept telling me to go home, and I'm like, I am.
Gosh.
This is my neighborhood. Like, I am home. Like, and I'm in my car. Like, I was literally I'm not sitting in front of my car. I was in my car. He's like, go home. And I'm like, I am home. Like, what do you?
My house is right over here.
Like, I did say underneath my breath a few Italian words. So. And that felt good.
If you've been following the political scene, both statewide and nationally, of course, all eyes were on the LA mayor's race with Spencer Pratt and the Karen Bass.
And how'd that go?
Well,
I missed it.
as of 11 o'clock last night, Karen Bass, was still in the lead, but Spencer was in second place, which would kick both of them to a runoff later this year. You can look and see what the updated result. There were a lot of people saying in LA County they're not going to have results finalized for at least a week because they're very slow to get the results together. So I was again interested in that race, as some of you were, because this former reality star, Spencer Pratt, has really made a name for himself on TikTok and through a lot of unexpected support. Everybody from the guy who did the show Entourage to the music producer who's married to the much younger McPhee.
Oh, yes.
David Foster.
Yes.
He's one of Spencer Pratt's supporters. So it's been really interesting to follow that campaign, born out of Pratt losing his house from the Pacific Palisades fire, and then ultimately feeling like somebody needs to challenge Karen Bass. She won by a majority.
Yeah, it says Karen Bass is advancing to the general election. How do you reelect that woman that let that city burn?
That's so interesting, because I thought they were saying that they were close enough that he might also advance, but it looks like it's just going to be Karen then. So locally, if you were following or in Iowa, I should say, if you were following the state level races, Democrat Rob Sand was unopposed. So he now wins the Democratic nomination. And then Republican Zach Land, he upset Randy Feenstra in that GOP primary. So Feenstra was in a unique position, having former President Trump's and now current President Trump's endorsement. So he actually, Land, by getting that spot, was a surprise to a lot of people because of Feenstra's strong support from the president. So I didn't vote because I'm an independent, and we can't vote in primaries unless we're a registered party member.
It was very interesting this morning. I did see Rob Sand, and I do respect him as the state auditor. I do believe that he really, really goes through everything with a fine-tooth comb. He holds both people from both parties very accountable.
Yeah, you've gotten to know him.
I have gotten to know him, and interesting. I like his approach. He is very conversational, and he is very approachable.
Agreed.
And how he is, I believe he comes across very genuine and authentic. In the social media this morning, he was like talking to Republicans. He said, listen, there's room for you over here. I get it. And he has more GOP. He has more Republican donors than anybody else. He had more Republican donors than Feenstra had. So he said, come over here. We're somebody for everybody. This is not, he's trying to get rid of party politics because you can't. Because that's the problem. I don't think people are thinking. People are machine. It is, and nobody is thinking. I mean, we have seen people. You and I both know the one individual we're talking about that just are like so robotic, and it's like you can't believe that. And
it gets to a point where, and that's the problem with social media, right? Everybody has to, if they choose to wade into the political waters, then they feel like they have to comment on everything. And the thing is, you're not a paid pundit. You're not gonna appear on CNN or so sometimes I feel like people have become these armchair experts. In the Senate race, our friend and former morning news anchor Ashley Hinson, she won the GOP nomination in a landslide. Last I looked, it was 75. 20 something was the vote breakdown. And then Democrat Josh Turek, if I'm saying his name correctly, he's the guy, I believe, that's in the wheelchair. He defeated Zach Walz for the Democratic nomination. So very interesting if you've been following these races, because our airwaves were saturated with political spots for these candidates. And the thing that's interesting that we know, that's the cash cow for these TV stations, because you could put, I like to say, you could put a monkey on the set, and they're still going to get millions in election dollars by way of the candidates' campaigns and the political action committee dump on our state when issues become more, high profile. There were years ago some legislators who actually allowed for no cap on PAC money coming into states, and that opened the coffers, so to speak, for these TV stations, because then you had millions that were pouring in addition to the candidates' campaigns. And so, one year I always like to joke, at the station I worked at, to celebrate
Oh,
the
yeah.
election dollars that had poured in, we were given a Famous Dave's barbecue meal, and the station made $13 million that year.
And we got and the people who did all the work were, but actually that is high class, because we were normally only getting pizza, and we were getting like Little Caesars.
I was
$3.
happy. If I can get a biscuit with some honey on it, if you are truly a Midwesterner, you have to put honey on your KFC biscuit, and
No, I'm not a Midwesterner.
And you have to put syrup on your cornbread.
Yeah, no.
And it's amazing.
No.
Those of you who are cornbread syrup people, I'm with you. And we like honey on our KFC biscuit. If you go through the drive-through and they forget to put the honey in the bag, you have to circle back and say, you forgot the honey.
I don't even think I've ever had honey on a biscuit, ever.
What?
Yeah, no.
Okay, well, you're not a Midwesterner.
I'm not.
It's amazing. It's so good. And if you put butter on it and then some honey on top, yeah.
So I do have to
great.
say this. I was looking at so there was yet another principal and the track coach at a school here in Iowa. It was a private school that was arrested and charged. He was arrested on, I believe, it was called unlawful sexual contact with a child, rape the child. I mean, like whatever, that's what it is. If an adult is having sexual contact with a child, that's what it should be called. He was released. He was rearrested on a grooming charge. I know that the school had a meeting last night addressing it with the parents, which I commend. And I know they're having like the school is reportedly just devastated and shocked and angry, and all the teachers,
Absolutely.
Which of course. So I was reading some comments on in one of those private groups on social media, and there was one comment that someone said that because people were questioning whether they want to send their kids back. And I understand that there's that, it's like an isolated, and people are saying the school knew, they didn't know, la, 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 la. And then some woman had commented and rubbed me the wrong way. She said, these comments on social media, people are only coming after our school because we're a private school. False. And I took that very personally, because I am an equal opportunity, like, attacker. Like it has zero to do with the fact that it has everything to do with that this person was the principal and the track coach, and had a student babysit. Like, so many lines were blurred and crossed, and all of the things. It has zero to do with, so for me, and I always love when, it's like the private school people will come for me and say, you're being unfair. I'm the product of a private school. I went to Catholic school my entire life, preschool through senior year, right? Like, so please, that's not why. So this is not like we're attacking a school because it has zero to do with it. I was writing about this because a child was preyed upon, and there's all these other reports that this guy has been reported on before. Wow. Now they're saying, we didn't know. And they're saying like, this is the first time. I do know that he has been terminated, which I much respect to. There's no paid leave. He has been terminated from his role. But it's and so then so people are like, well, the wife of this guy, who's also a principal at another school district in Iowa, she wrote a letter saying that she, in support of the school. Like, we don't need to show support of the school right now. It has nothing to do with the school right now. Mm-hmm. It's like, for me, all I see is you're trying to keep people in the seat so you still get tuition, because that's how I'm reading it. It's the only concern is that child safe? Are there any other children in that school who were harmed? That's it. We're not worried about enrollment right now. We're not worried about tuition right now. We're not worried about anything else. Are the children in this school safe? That's it. And if you've answered that, if you've taken away the threat, you've taken away the danger, then good. It has nothing to,
well, and it's good that it was a public arrest, in that a lot of these schools in other circumstances have allowed the individual that might have been accused or found, a founded case, they resign. And quietly. That's something that we've seen as they go on to get jobs in other places. And so that's, to me, what's really troubling, is when you don't want the stain on your reputation, so you allow this to be swept under the rug as long as the perpetrator leaves.
And
And we've seen that
Well,
time and time again.
And that's what happened in the Atlantic School District, also another school district in Iowa. There were teachers who were outraged months ago, not teachers, I'm sorry, parents outraged because they found out that this guy had inappropriate contact with the student and the school was going to let him quietly resign. That was the rumor. Parents show up in a morning meeting. And if you remember, it was a very heated meeting. They were holding the school board accountable, and parents got blamed for this meeting. And then the students had a walkout, right? And because of that, they fired that guy. They ended up firing him. They did not let him resign quietly. And what they found, now he has just been arrested last week for charges in Atlantic for inappropriate sexual relationship with a child. And because of because of this public moment, let's call it, another county is filing charges on him. So it's like, it is literally the onion. This is why when there are allegations and a teacher, a coach, an adult, anybody is arrested they need to be arrested. They need to be terminated. They should not be allowed to resign quietly. They are so worried about lawsuits from the perpetrator. That's what it comes down to, that we are forgetting to protect children currently and then in the future. Because here's the thing, until you get caught, they keep racking up victims. There's like dozens and dozens of victims. People will have dozens and dozens of victims until they're caught. So, I mean, and when you're letting somebody resign quietly, so
you're just allowing more victims to be targeted,
right?
Because you then are saying our reputation is more important than protecting kids. But in fact, your children and families will be grateful if you did the right thing to take disciplinary action, because that definitely will have a clear message being sent that you don't tolerate this kind of behavior. Because I just think so many schools, unfortunately, because of social media, they have become so, as you described, so defensive, assuming that anyone and everyone will sue and that there's going to be this blowback. But you cannot put a price on the goodwill that will come out of a school district doing the right thing and being transparent and removing that person.
And this is the thing that schools need to understand. They say, like, your teachers, your coaches specifically, should only be contacting students and athletes via apps on the phone, whether it's Team Reach, whatever app that you have. Okay. There are too many teachers and coaches who are communicating with students via Snapchat, and that should not happen. So I know these schools are now putting, most schools should have these things in place, but then again, you can't gatekeep people. Most people have Snapchat. I think I'm probably one of the only adults who does not have Snapchat on their phone. Like, I literally do not. Most people do.
That's true, because I was going to snap you yesterday, and then I was like, oh,
she doesn't
have it.
Right. I don't have Snapchat. I don't trust it. I think it's really weird. But there are too many adults who are snapping children. Like, there was another man arrested, another Iowa man, because he was snapping. He thought he was snapping a 13-year-old girl, and he was really snapping an undercover officer.
Crazy.
Why are adults contacting children on Snapchat? Because they think that they're smarter than the app. We'll delete. No one's going to know. Yeah. We do. We saw the pictures that you were sending. We all saw them.
Elizabeth Ackerson. Hi, Liz. I personally think that school districts that allow the resignation or attempt to cover it up should be assuming the liability for future victims. There should be a duty to warn.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they are mandatory reporters. So everybody in the school district is supposed to mandatory report. And then if you don't report it as a school district, you still fall into that same, judgment of, okay, what did you know when? And so the school districts that are doing it right are removing both people immediately from the environment so that there's no contact. So if there's a child that might be in contact with this adult, he or she needs to be protected so that they don't even have to run into them in the hall. And then in the reverse, the accused, until it's been investigated, it's safe to just remove them entirely. So they can be on paid leave because it may not be a founded complaint, but you need to just protect your employee too, regardless of the outcome. And so I think that's where I've seen a lot of school districts with the missteps of, you're back in the classroom, and then everybody knows what's going on. And so it's not safe for the children or the adults. But I have seen, full disclosure, I have seen educators over the years be falsely accused. And one time when a person was falsely accused, they were removed from the classroom, an investigation was done, and then it wasn't founded. And so in the end, it was the right thing because they still were trying to protect all parties involved. And so I think that's the part that people forget is it's not a punishment if you get removed. It's also protecting you so that your sort of due diligence can be worked out.
But most school districts don't do that. Like
No,
the
right.
fact that and I think that's fantastic that you bring up those cases, because it is important to remove the person from the classroom. Let's do our due diligence. Let's investigate both sides. And you're right. You're protecting everybody involved. You're protecting everybody. So it's, and it's interesting. There are people. I remember when I was going toe to toe with a local school district. Shocker. And people were saying the kids are just making this up. It is very actually rare for children. It's a very rare case. And I know there's a percentage, and I would have to ask my friends at the Child Protection Center, for a child to falsely accuse somebody of inappropriate behavior, sexual contact, or rape. It is so rare because they are so embarrassed and mortified.
Yeah,
they
that
feel
makes
like
sense.
they did something wrong. And you have to understand, these children have been groomed. First, the parents, we've been groomed too. You've been groomed because the teacher or the coach or the adult has come for you first. So they've built that trust with you. So this one principal, for instance, he probably was like, I mean, why out? Like the child was babysitting at his house. So there's a lot of trust that has been established there.
Absolutely.
And so those poor parents of that victim, those poor parents, you know what I mean? That poor child, and so that child, whoever the victim is, they have been told things like, you can't tell anybody of this because you're going to get in so much trouble. You're going to get in so much trouble. That's what these people do. They are master manipulators, and they've done it time and time and again because they keep getting away with it. So we have so many children that we are amongst who are literally living in fear.
Oh,
their lives have been destroyed. They have been failed, and they are living in fear because they have been led to believe that they're at fault for this. And that is what breaks my heart. That is what breaks my heart. And that is why I will light the match every single time and light something on fire, because there's too many kids. In the last week alone, we've had 3 adults.
And those are just the ones that we know about.
Yes.
Because there are many cases where somebody was potentially allowed to resign when somebody saw smoke, and then they said, let's get them out of here. And then it's somebody else's problem. It's another district's problem.
And I don't know if anybody has seen this, and you can drop your comment in the group chat, but you and I have seen this. And I showed you that one picture. When somebody is accused and arrested of it, and then if this person looks like, if the man or woman looks a certain way, or if they have friends in the right circles, she would never do that. He would never do that. And then people just move on. They're like, oh no, he would never. I'm sorry. If I found out that if you were sending, D pics via Snapchat, pictures of yourself, asking somebody to shower, like a child to shower, you were raping a child, you were doing this, I don't want you, don't ever look in my direction. Anybody associated with you, don't ever look in my direction. Do not. Because if you are around somebody who has done this and you have you just co-signed that behavior when you're still standing there. And that's how I feel. You're like, it's no big deal. He didn't mean it. That's disgusting. I want nothing to do with you. So I hope you look in my direction sometime, because I'll let you know.
Well, the other part of that is
Catch me at Hy-Vee.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Catch me at Hy-Vee. The other part of that is people who are associated with somebody who does something like that. It's very easy then to feel kind of this guilt by association, shame is how I would describe it. So when somebody like Amanda is involved, then you instantly can channel your anger and your embarrassment that, oh, I'm associated with somebody who's now, done something horrific. You can then channel your anger towards somebody like her.
Yeah.
And so people have said comments like, well, Amanda Goodman ruined a town because she brought to light XYZ. And then I said, Amanda Goodman was reacting to something that
Thank you.
person set in motion. And that's
Thank
the
you.
distinction. She didn't randomly pick a town and say, let's look, peek behind the curtains and see what's going on. It was brought to her doorstep. And so the reason that people brought it to your doorstep, and I get it because I've seen this time and time again, is because the friends of the perpetrator are sometimes, especially in those smaller districts, they're in leadership roles and they're friends with the people. So like if the teacher is good friends with the principal or the principal is good
Yeah.
friends with the superintendent, there is a really good chance that they are going to treat the case differently than if it's an outside investigator coming in. And so you should recuse yourself from investigating if you are seen having a barbecue with the person on the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's crazy.
And that's what-
some
and
of
that-
these people are leading the investigation
Well,
of their friends.
Yes. And then they go on to other school districts, and then that's what's crazy. And so then it was, I am like a dog with a bone. I'm like, this is not okay. This is wrong. This is wrong. Because you know what that is? That's called journalism. That's old school journalism.
Yeah.
That's the journalism that is dead today. That's the journalism that Tara and I are, that's all we know. So it's, we have to ask the who, what, where, when, why, and why is this still happening? That's what that is. And so that's what makes people really uncomfortable, because we are conditioned just be spoon-fed things,
Mhm.
spoon-fed, and not
And
like
don't
rock
make
the boat.
people uncomfortable.
No, yeah,
Mhm.
because back in the day, people didn't like journalists, right? We respected them. They weren't like journalists have morphed into they want to be considered news personalities, and they want to be in the community, and they want to be on like sitting on back of cars and parades and
Doing
waving.
TikToks.
Yeah, doing TikTok. They want to be like, it's all about being liked, and like that.
Yeah,
We weren't
the
supposed to be liked.
personality is driving, not the stories and the coverage, but you're supposed to just be the conduit, the medium by which the content is delivered. The story isn't supposed to be you.
No,
you know.
right. And journalists, we were supposed to be agitators. We agitated people because we were going into situations and like uncovering and lifting the rug up. And so
Absolutely.
that's the difference. That's where people are really, really uncomfortable. Like, so when people are like, I don't like you. Okay. Like,
we
okay.
We entered a profession where the goal was not to be liked, because if everyone likes you, then you're probably not challenging some of the status quo elements.
You're
that
not a
need
good
to be
reporter.
covered.
Right.
Yeah, that need to be reported. A couple of quick comments. Amy Shannon, pedophiles do not get caught the first time they offend. And Whitney said, and just think how many kids aren't believed the first time that keep them from coming forward again. That's so true, because once a parent or somebody in some level of authoritative, presence with that child, once he or she says, oh, I'm sure they didn't mean that, or, oh, that didn't happen, that begins the silencing effect.
And listen, I want to show some grace to other educators out there and coaches and administrators. I want to sympathize with you, because I get it. When a child would come to you and share something so disgusting, it is hard as an adult to wrap your brain around.
Right.
And another adult, a grown person harming a
Hurting a
child
child.
in that way. I understand. I sympathize. Like, it's unfathomable, right? And then add to it someone that you worked alongside for years, someone that has become a friend and like family to you. Like,
Yeah.
that is a difficult. It is like, I will always think about Jerry Sandusky, Joe Paterno. There was like, when that was brought to Joe Paterno, I literally think that he was like, because he was a good man. Joe Paterno was a good, like, morally high man. I really truly think that he was like, there's no way, like, because it was just so sick. It was so sick. It is so hard to believe that somebody that you love, you trust would do something so disgusting to a child. That is why outside investigators are important. That's why the school needs to pick up the phone, call the experts, like the detectives, those trained in it. I need to bring, and then stay out of it and let the investigation happen. If you would do that, we would save so many children. We would save so many.
One thing I was going to ask you, just out of curiosity, because I could ask many people and I didn't yet, but I thought you might know, why did the Valley Lutheran situation, why did the Waterloo police handle it when the school's in Cedar Falls?
That's a great question. I don't know that.
And then what was
Is it
funny
on like the
one of
border?
news
Is it
stations-
Cedar Falls or is it on the border?
Cedar
Okay.
Falls.
Okay.
One of the stations said a Waterloo administrator, and I thought, no, the school's in a
And I
different
don't even,
town.
and he doesn't even, well, because only bad things happen in only
I know,
Waterloo.
but I thought
That's
that
why.
was so funny because I thought, well, it wasn't a Waterloo administrator.
That's a really good question. I have no idea.
So I didn't know if it was because was the victim a resident of Waterloo? You know what
Possibly.
I mean? That could
be possibly
be.
it.
So I just thought that was interesting.
very
because,
interesting.
Because
I'm
that
trying to
would
look
be
that up.
like, your child goes to that school there, then you contact a police department in a different town.
No, I guarantee that's exactly what would happen because if you're a resident,
the person,
Mhm, mhm.
which
Yeah.
would make sense. So speaking of the media, if you've been following the unraveling of 60 Minutes, Scott Pelley is a longtime journalist for CBS, and he has done many years of
Yes.
commentary and, reporting as a 60 Minutes correspondent. And he has been very vocal. And it was interesting that a recording was leaked where there was a managerial type meeting involving the 60 Minutes staff. And there is a gentleman who some would say is like a tech bro who was brought in because he was supposed to revamp the whole 60 Minutes approach. And the funny thing that I thought was interesting, so the executive above him, I think her name is Barry Weiss, she brought in this guy because she wanted him to shake things up at 60 Minutes. And so what I loved that you'll find hilarious is he made a comment that something to the effect of broadcast as it is traditionally,
Okay.
Broadcast journalism is an ice cube that's melting. I'll have to
my
look up the
gosh.
quote. So basically he was saying that it's dead and it's, slipping away, and that we need to revamp and rethink how we deliver anything like the news product of a 60 Minutes. So Scott Pelley spoke up and basically said, like, the person that's in charge of making these decisions, Barry, is out of her league to even suggest that she understands, the purpose or vision of this program. And then you, my friend, he basically said, you have very limited qualifications to tell us what to do as well. So Scott really stuck his neck out for his colleagues.
You should. Well, again, it's the people who are making all the decisions have never been in the arena, right? And so have you ever worked in a newsroom? And I will give credit where credit's due. I mean, one of the, a news director that was the hardest on me, if you've been to the show, you know exactly who I'm talking about, had the best news judgment, and had been in the newsroom, had worked in a newsroom. So had a phenomenal news mind.
Yes.
But
yes,
that's
point.
so far gone. That's so far gone. It was very, I remember one of my news directors, he was like the photog background. So he should not have been a news director. This person should not, because he was the one that you'd send out on, like, go shoot that fire, go do this. And so it's rarely the one who's an actual journalist who's calling the shots in the newsroom.
Yeah,
it's
true.
really, they put people who are in the salespeople who are calling the shots. And I think, it is really sad. I will never forget when I was an evening anchor in Texas, and it was Katie Couric. This was her big moment. And Katie Couric she was the first female evening news anchor. And I'm like, this is our moment. Like, you are like, and then Katie Couric, by the way, never should have left morning news. She's a morning news personality.
Agreed.
She's not a journalist. And her lead story was Tom Cruise and the wedding.
You were going to say that.
It was the wedding.
Yeah, it was like
I couldn't even believe it.
Beginning of
That was the more beginning of the end.
unraveling of the credibility of evening news.
When we started getting breaking news alerts from CNN that Kim Kardashian was pregnant, that's why I was like, this is over. We're done.
We've crossed over to
Right.
never returning. Okay, breaking news. So Scott Pelley, turns out he was fired yesterday from CBS News because of his clash with the network leadership. Now, he did say they are murdering 60 Minutes, in his words. And so they basically said that this new management was pressuring him to inject bias and unverified falsehoods into political stories.
So he's
And
accusing
so,
them of doing
yes.
that. Wow, good for
So
him.
good for Scott. So here's what I also know, what we uniquely understand. Sometimes there is more to this story, and we're guessing now that he's been so vocal. Scott probably has something else lined up, and his agent probably said, "Hey, get out of your contract, buddy." And then he said, "You know what? Conveniently, I mean, I'm completely making
He
this
could
up, but
very much.
the guy very much probably said, this is my opportunity to tell you how I really feel,
Yeah.
because I got a
There's
deal
no
lined
way.
up down
Yeah.
the road here."
Yeah,
So
because
we
you
will
can't-
be
yeah.
excited to see where Scott Pelley lands, but good for him to go out, in a blaze of glory, because this does give him, in the eyes of public opinion, a little bit more prominence, that he is somebody who's trying to stand up for the journalism that we are sad has almost disappeared.
And and it is, and we need the old guard, because, in no disrespect to the younger generations, but it has morphed into, and I don't know whether they're teaching this at J school. I don't know. Like and I understand, like, in order to compete today, you have to make it about you. I don't want to see one more TikTok of a young journalist showing, come get ready with me, a day in the life in the news. I don't care. It's not about you. I shouldn't know you. Like, I used to love when I would be like in the grocery store out and about, and people would say, I love that story that you aired.
Mm-hmm.
I love that story that you did.
But that very rarely happened, because usually it was, I loved that outfit you had.
Yeah. I love you. And that's, it's so funny. It's crazy. That's
No one said that to Ron or Mark.
That's what's about our show. When we're doing our Faith in Four Letter Words, show weekly, and that is what it was. It was kind of, people would like, why are you always wearing a black jacket? And it was because I wanted to look like the guys, because I thought if I look like them,
you didn't want your distraction to be the headline,
right?
Your attire to be the headline or be a distraction. The point was, for us, yes, we had to try to look presentable, but we weren't trying to be, fashion icons. And so it was actually funny.
Hence,
that
the
it
white
would
shirt,
be in Call the Courier a lot, where it would be like, does Tara Thomas pick out her own clothes? And then, of course, that was AKA, like, we think that she dresses horribly or something. And so I would be honest sometimes when the Courier would inquire, and I would say stuff like, well, considering I don't make enough to have some huge, designer wardrobe, yes, I may be wearing like something I got at Goodwill. I mean, I was actually trying to be that frugal, because we had to wear a different outfit every night, and our only short-lived trade with Dillard's,
and you can't
was
repeat
the
it.
only time I got to like borrow clothes, and then we got very small clothing allowances, very, very tiny.
Yeah. And then here's the thing about the clothing allowances that we got. And at every station, when you got a clothing allowance, so you went out and you bought, and then you had to submit your receipt. And then what they would do is they would take out 30% of taxes. So then you wouldn't even get all the money that you spent back.
That's true.
So it was kind of like,
well, and then we had sometimes consultants. So this one particular consultant, she went with me to Dillard's. Well, for her, money was no object. And she was like, okay, this is what I want you to wear this. So in the span of 30 minutes, she had picked out maybe only 5 to 10 pieces that met the $1,000 allowance, because she was buying everything expensive and full price. And I wanted to say, honey, like, let's go down here to the clearance rack, because this will actually maximize my very limited clothing budget.
Right.
That was kind of a sad situation where I had to just, and of course I had to kind of just acquiesce and say, oh, okay, you're the expert, and again,
and they were like 20 years.
And what's funny is I still have 1 or 2 of those blazers that I still keep in the closet, because they are somewhat timeless. So in that sense, I'm glad she picked out stuff that would come back around in fashion 20 years later.
I think I burned it all. I had a bonfire. I donated some.
Yes, I remember you.
I had a
remember when
bonfire.
You did that post on social media where you were like, I have a lot of suits and business attire that I need to get rid of.
Because anytime I look at them, I'm like, and I hate the word triggered, but I was triggered by them. Like, it was very harsh memories when you see a dress that you were called a fat effing hippo in by your boss, or you see you see the shirt that you wore that caused such backlash, like, and that got me in trouble, like a ridiculous amount of trouble, because some lady, and
offended.
didn't like the outfit. And it was like, and then I fought back, and it was just, I'm tired. I can't, like, I'm still sitting here angry about getting yelled at by a man last night at a game. Like, I'm still sitting
So
here
back
mad.
to Scott Pelley, the 60 Minutes debacle. I just think it's outrageous, even though we already know this is going on. It's outrageous that the executives would be telling these 60 Minutes correspondents to bias their story. You know,
Crazy.
it blows. I mean, but here's the thing:
Crazy.
people are probably not shocked by that because we already assume that's the case. You know,
Listen,
isn't that sad?
It is. And I will always go back to when I was a young reporter and I was covering a snowstorm. And I said on live television, and I said, the roads are horrible. If you don't have to be out, do not come out. I come back. My news director, Carrie King, is waiting for me outside of the station in Amarillo, Texas. And she looks at me and she said, who are you? She's like, did TxDOT, Texas Department of Transportation, tell you to keep people off the roads? And I said, no. And she goes, then who are you to tell people that the roads are bad? And they were sticklers. You couldn't even have bias about the roads.
Right.
And I'm so thankful for it. So that's why it disgusts me to see all of these television, all of these news stations that are so biased. And we're talking about, doesn't matter if you're right or if you're left.
Yeah, we're talking about the traditional network news. That's what we're talking about
Right.
here, because Scott Pelley and CBS News and
journalist.
60 Minutes.
Journalism.
I mean, you think back in the day, like the guy who was the classic Mike Wallace.
Mike
I
Wallace.
can't believe I remembered his name. What
Good job.
what an incredible correspondent. I mean, when that guy showed up, when you were, you know,
You heard the ticking?
gouging, you were gouging people pulling into your, you know, little mom and pop
Here comes Mike.
filling station with the car repair out back, and he showed up because everybody was, you know, claiming you were falsifying the charges. It was like, oh my gosh, Mike Wallace is here. I mean, he was the pre-Chris, the date, what's the date?
Hansen.
Yeah, he was
Chris Hansen.
he was the OG that then Chris Hansen followed suit with the sexual predator exposés. I mean, and I'm telling you, hilarious, but crazy when you think about how they had then become almost caricatures of themselves, because that's like, it's like a Saturday Night Live skit, you know, if you walked into your kitchen and Chris Hansen was there.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. But you knew that
Which
they
is
were going to
great.
but you knew that there was accountability that was going to follow.
Yes,
Like, you didn't want,
yes.
that's what journalism was.
Right.
You didn't want to see these people anywhere in your community, because you knew you weren't like, oh my
that
God.
they're gonna roll.
Right. That is
And
journalism.
that's power, and that's the
That's the
power
power.
of the pen, and that is the one thing that social media has allowed to continue to really proliferate, is the power of the pen, because it is still impactful. Now, granted, there's a lot of abuse, there's a lot of factual inaccuracies and all the things, but when you cut through the world of communication on the varying levels and platforms,
Mhm.
social media can still deliver, you know, a crushing blow to some of these individuals that would like to sweep things under a rug.
Right. And listen, I don't mean this to sound egotistical by any means, but I know that there are people who fear, they don't like me because they're afraid of what I'm going to say. But I also
You're
understand
gonna
that
blog about it?
you're going to blog about it because you recognize my power.
Oh, wait, what did
You-
that one person say, that you were a small town blogger or
Small,
something?
yeah.
And that's what's funny. It's like, the reason that's not true is because, thanks to social media, it doesn't matter if you live in Antarctica. If you have a huge following, you can reach millions of people. So it doesn't matter if you're in a small town, because thanks to the digital nature of connecting people, you could reach millions anywhere.
Right.
So I
know.
mean, that's what makes it. So years ago, yeah, if you lived in a small town, no, you wouldn't, you know, you stand on a soapbox in the town square, you're only going to hit maybe 20 people. Now you can write something on a platform in Hudson, Iowa, and you can reach millions of people.
If you look at Mary Jansen, I am not afraid. You should be Mary Jansen. You should be very
She's
afraid
not
of me.
afraid because she has a lot on you.
She has-
could-
All she has are my tunes and how I can sing Whitney. Well, it's so funny because it's kind of like, you know, when people will say things to me like, are you going to like blog about, like, if you weren't worried about the power, if you didn't recognize the power of the pen, then you wouldn't even have said anything.
But here's what I would question is, what do you want? what do you want? Do you want to live in a civilized society where we never bring to light what's happening in the dark? That's my question.
Right.
And I don't know that
People
people
don't
are
want it.
honest about that.
They want you to call out the guy down the street, not the guy that's been in their living room.
Well,
That's it.
they also want you to focus on the family who has been not mainstreamed by the social hierarchy. So
Right.
as long as it's a family that's on the other side of the tracks,
Right.
it's okay to embarrass them.
Right.
But then if it's somebody you hang out with at the country club and you play golf with, you don't want to embarrass them. And I think, and we've seen that. I mean, the movie The Outsiders is a microcosm of small town life, because everybody, Pony Boy
Stay
rolling
golden.
up. I
Stay
mean,
golden.
and that's the thing that people have a hard time with, is acknowledging and recognizing that messy happens everywhere, even, behind the doors of the manicured lawns and the bigger houses. Messy happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And I'm coming. And that's what it
And
is.
she
It's-
and Scott Pelley are going to be
We're like
riding
this.
into town.
and like,
Scott Pelley has good anchor hair.
He has
He's
good
got
anchor hair.
this. Do you think his
he's-
hair is real? I
Yes.
think it looks real.
I think he has real hair, and he's got a really good voice. He's got the he has the Force News voice, and it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now another person that's on 60 Minutes who kind of interesting that he landed on 60 Minutes, but he does do some manner of investigative journalism effectively, as Anderson Cooper. But I've always thought that it was weird that he was a correspondent on 60 Minutes, because when he's co-hosting the New Year's Eve celebration with
And he's
Andy
drunk.
Cohen, he says and does a lot of things that aren't on the level of credibility that Scott Pelley
I'm
projects.
so old. I remember Anderson Cooper when he did News One. When News
right.
One was
In the
in the
classrooms.
classrooms,
Yeah,
it was
that's
true.
true.
Broadcast. And here's the thing:
Now,
you people at home, and I'm so thankful that you brought it up today. You at home should keep what Tara said in your mind when you're watching news today, right? Am I watching because I'm watching for the people, or do I want the news? If you tune out the people and kind of close your eyes and listen to the news today, and tell me if you get anything out of it.
Yeah, and also you need to think about, is the person who's delivering the news, is their end game to truly be informing the populace, or is their end game, I want to, show you how I've injected myself into the story. And what I mean by that is, when you see, and we used to admittedly be a part of it, like the Olympics are coming, and so we're going to have Tara, do some snow, some snowshoeing, like at George Wythe. I think that's what I did. You become a personality who then wants to supersede the content of the story.
And I'll tell you this. So there's a thing called a stand-up, and every news director and every producer would tell the reporter or the journalist, the anchor, say, but you need to do a stand-up. So that's why, like, you'll be watching this news story, and all of a sudden, like, the reporter pops back up into the. So I remember I was doing, it was the gun test, and and they like, you need to have stand-up, you need to be in there, and I'm like, there's no point of me being in there, like let's keep the meat of it. I mean, they eventually showed me when I walked into the room where we were doing this experiment thing, but that's what it is. Like, for me, I fought it. Like, I didn't want to be in the story. It wasn't about me, but that's when I knew it was like switching.
Well, yes, also because of social media, now there's that blurred line of, well, we want people to like you and we want you to get attention. And so there's a lot of people doing things on social media then to be influencers when they're still supposed to be delivering traditional journalism. So that's where the line really blurred.
I remember, and I wanted to do this so bad, and then he would not let me. But when I was in Iowa and I was so tired, I was overwhelmed with people talking about my appearance. And I go, can I please go on air tonight with no makeup and have my hair pulled back? Like, I wanted to do that. He was like,
absolutely not.
Absolutely not. You know what he said? He was like, people will be too busy looking at your appearance and not listening to the news. I'm like, you mean like they do every day? And that's all. I begged. I'm like, let me just have no makeup on, or like very minimal, because we wear this much makeup.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. What are your thoughts on Pamela Anderson? and how she's now
Living.
made a name for herself.
Good for her.
As being sort of the anti-glam, right?
All
So if
natural.
you haven't seen her lately, it's really interesting. Yeah, I'm fascinated by her because she has had an interesting
Her story is
cast of characters that have been love interests in her life. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody from the WikiLeaks guy,
yes.
Julian Assange, is
Mhm.
that his name, to, of course, Tommy Lee, who's probably the love of her life, admittedly. I think interesting documentary if you want to watch.
That's a real. I
something.
like that documentary.
Uh-huh.
Listen, she wakes up and she decides that she doesn't want to be anybody else's show pony because that's what she felt like.
Yeah.
She's like, I just want to like, I don't like, she just want, I don't want to wear makeup. She's not trying to make like a movement or anything. She's just
Right.
like, I just don't want to. And everyone has some, so people are like, you could at least put, and I saw women comment, you could at least put some foundation on. She doesn't want to. Why do we like, why? It's kind of, yes, we posted something yesterday on our page and I was talking to a dear friend of mine and she was told by like a superior, you need to fix your face, meaning because she has exquisite RBF, exquisite, like you, like
RBF, for those of you that
resting
may not
bee.
know, resting bee face,
So-
the B word face. Like you look like a bee because your face is in a resting position of
She's-
not pleasant.
she's one of the kindest people. Like literally take her shirt off the back, off her back to help you, right? But that's the point. We have always been told we have to be a certain way. We have to look approachable.
Yeah.
You look so like
Women
why?
are always told that you don't look approachable. And like you said, men, there's no equivalent in the reverse. There's no one who says to a guy after he addresses if it's a leader in a company, I've never heard of a case where somebody pulled them aside and said, you seemed really angry.
yeah, no.
They
No.
always
You're so
say you
aggressive.
seemed really
You were-
authoritative and very credible in your delivery, right?
So good.
Yeah,
Like
and
that-
so that's what's so weird about our culture. We default to think if a woman comes off as sour, that then you're somehow unattractive and rude. And
Why do I have-
that's what happened to Hillary Clinton. People said that she was like
Well,
rude
she was
and
rude.
abrasive.
she was
No,
rude and
she was
abrasive
to you
me.
personally,
yes.
but I'm
No,
just
but
saying
yes.
for women in general, it's
Right.
like it's an impossible hurdle
You
to
can't.
overcome. And then on the flip side, if a guy is very like stern and now Amanda Goodman, I'm gonna put you in your place, then all of a sudden people are cheering from the rafters because way to show you shut that broad up.
This is what exactly like you're such a man. You told a woman off in public
Yeah.
and you have a 10-year-old boy haircut. You are such
and
thank you for doing that.
and I feel sorry for your husband.
Oh my
Remember?
God. Oh yeah. Yeah. When
How
someone
many
was
times have you been told
I was
that?
like, I can't believe your husband. How does your husband feel? Blessed. Lucky. Right? Like it's just like it's kind of
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
want to like no woman. I want you to know this. And as we wrap up, I can't believe it's the end of the hour already. I want you to know this. It is not your job to make anybody feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's true.
If they are uncomfortable, that's a them problem. It's not you. You don't have to look approachable. RBF protects you from conversations that you don't want to have. Like it's you don't have to be. We have a lot going on. When was the last time someone walked up to you and said, "Are you doing all right? Are you like okay?
Yeah.
You look like you have a lot on your plate."
So
No, they just
true.
like, "What's wrong with you? You look like you're in a bad mood." Maybe we have a lot going on. You don't have to soften. You don't have to harden. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to, make sure everyone around you is comfortable. That's a them problem. It's not you.
Yeah,
So
that's a great reminder.
So that's my word of the day. I'm going to go back to a word that I've used before, but I'm going to use it again. And it is nope. Nope.
It's always a good word for many occasions to employ. Okay, a week from tonight, we are back on the road. We have a show at Fireside Winery in Marengo. Now,
Yes.
reminder, some of you may recall we had originally scheduled this show in April, and due to my unfortunate car accident, we did move this show then to Wednesday, June 10th. And so thank you to our friends at Fireside Winery for allowing us to reschedule it. And many of you were gracious and said, hey, I can make it in June. And for some who couldn't, they were given refunds. But thank you to those of you who were willing to come and still see us. And wait, until June 10th. Jump on our website, faithandfourletterwords.com, if you'd like to buy tickets. Also, Reedland the following week on the
Yes.
17th. And then we're going back to Monticello with our friend Whitney on June 24th. So we would love to see you at any of those
Yes.
shows so we can, hang out in person and just see people face to face. It's a gift, right? After COVID, we just don't do enough anymore in person. And
Let's get
so
out.
it's actually fun that we still can connect
is.
with women. And we live for like making people laugh and seeing also sometimes the emotions that come out, because we want it to be a cathartic release for
Right.
you. When we come together and we don't have to go to a bar or a church, we can bring a little faith and
That's right.
frustration right to your doorstep in your community. And real quick verse that is appropriate to align with that, Psalms 42, verse 11. Why am I discouraged? Why is my heart so sad? I will put my hope in God. I will praise him again, my Savior and my God. So if you're discouraged or you're feeling down, just turn it over to God and release whatever is weighing on you, because he will carry your burdens and make sure that you can be at peace regardless of your circumstances. And I always say that because so many people say, well, this situation or this problem isn't going to go away overnight. And I get it. So that's okay, because that doesn't mean that you have to be in constant turmoil.
No, just, when life gets too heavy, hit the knees. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you back here on Friday.
Thank you for watching the group chat. The show is brought to you by the empowering staff at Urology Center of Iowa, Canoyer Gardens, Azalea Lane Boutique, and Splendor the Medical Spa.